Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome again. Assalamu alaikum to our episode once again on teens, tech, and AI. Today, we have an amazing teen who is not really a teen but looks teeny and tiny. But then we'll go get started. Abdulhadi, thank you for coming on. I'll give you the moment to introduce yourself and we go on from there.
Walaikum assalam. It's nice to be on, Aziz. I heard about this podcast and what you were doing, and I figured I might as well contribute my experience as well as how I progressed to where I am currently. So, my name is Abdulhadi. I'm currently a senior software engineer at Meta. I grew up in Toronto. That's where I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school. After high school, I went to the University of Waterloo. I did like a bunch of internships at the University of Waterloo, something like six. And then I moved to California, where I worked for Apple for maybe like 2 years. And during the pandemic, I transitioned to working at Meta. And I've been at Meta for around 4.5 years now, and it's been pretty good.
Wow, Jazakumullah khairan. I think our audience will be, I myself will be very interested in learning about sort of how your teenage ages formed you to become like this person. I think one of our episode, I think we had Yusuf Anafi, who was also currently in Waterloo now. So I think it will be super nice to sort of contrast and see how your journeys all led into like Waterloo. So talk to us a bit more about things that are not on LinkedIn. So like, take us way back on things that people won't even find on LinkedIn elementary
Sure, yeah.
and stuff.
So I guess if I was to go way, way back,
Hmm.
in middle school, I
Hmm.
wasn't actually really interested in technology to begin with.
Hmm.
I think I was really interested in science and
Hmm.
biology
Hmm.
and maybe like a little bit of physics.
Hmm.
And I actually had the intention of going into ecology, which is totally left field of technology because I really liked animals and my parents used to like bring me a lot of like animal books growing up. And so I thought maybe that's where I wanted to go in the future. And then once I started getting into high school, my parents started to introduce me to more things around technology. Specifically, they got me like my first game system. I think I started off by playing on the Nintendo 64, which is a really old game system. I doubt a lot of your audience would even know what that is, but that's what I grew up on. And so I played the Nintendo 64 for a little bit, and then I went on to the GameCube, and then from the GameCube, I went on to the PlayStation 2, and then the PlayStation 3, and then eventually I started getting more into like gaming laptops and stuff. And so I would say my introduction to technology was primarily through gaming initially. And especially when I got into like gaming laptops,
Hmm.
I started like getting into like tinkering with different types of hardware.
Hmm.
I looked into this company called Eurocom, which basically allowed you to customize your gaming laptop and allowed you to like actually open it up and replace parts in it. And so I thought just the aspect of being able to like customize your own hardware
Hmm.
was really interesting.
Hmm.
And also was pretty cost effective because I wouldn't have to constantly buy new hardware every time I want to play a new game. And so that was my initial foray into
Hmm.
technology.
Hmm.
From there, I was also involved in my robotics club.
Hmm.
And I wasn't super involved, but I
Hmm.
had a couple friends who were a lot more involved than me.
Hmm.
And they introduced me to some very simple programming concepts. I think at the time they showed me like Robot C and
Hmm.
how to program like Arduinos and stuff.
Hmm.
Again, I wasn't super interested in it, but just the idea and the exposure of robotics and the types of competitions like FRC, I
Hmm.
thought was really cool. And so initially, I wasn't an active member,
Hmm.
but I was definitely intrigued by the concepts that I was being exposed to. And then it wasn't until grade 10 where I think kind of like a flip switch to me. Because up till grade 10, I was kind of like casually interested in technology here and there, wanted to experiment with robotics, but didn't really do anything concrete with regards to programming or actually bettering myself in programming.
Hmm.
But I had a really inspirational teacher in grade 10. I think I still remember his name. His name was Mr. Porterero.
Hmm.
And that teacher, what he did was he portrayed programming to me in a way
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't just like learning theory, it was more
Mm-hmm.
like solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
And he made it seem more like a game.
Hmm.
And all the assignments, they
Mm-hmm.
were like, okay, can you make this checkers game? Can you make this chess game?
Mm-hmm.
Or here's this like really interesting graphic that has some mathematical concept behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you solve it and make it so that this graphic looks this way instead of that way?
Mm-hmm.
And so just the actual feedback that we got from doing
Mm-hmm.
these sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
especially the fact that a lot of these things had like a graphical user interface involved with them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that was really interesting to me
Mm-hmm.
and very inspirational and wanted me to continue to explore this area. So initially, I can tell you one thing for sure, I was really
Mm-hmm.
bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably one of the worst coders in
Mm-hmm.
that programming class because
Mm-hmm.
I remember a lot of people, especially some of like the people that were like international students
Mm-hmm.
that had come to my high school, because
Mm-hmm.
I grew up around a lot of international
Mm-hmm.
kids who
Mm-hmm.
had just come to Canada
Mm-hmm.
like maybe 2 or 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they came straight from China. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when it comes to like programming in places
Mm-hmm.
like China and India, this kind of stuff was emphasized a lot more. And
Mm-hmm.
so those kids, they blew past all these problems.
Hmm.
But me, I struggled quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, for example, the checkers game that we made.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get it to work,
Mm-hmm.
but when somebody else was actually looking at my code, they were like,
Mm-hmm.
"This code is atrocious. Like I can write this entire thing in like 100 lines, and you wrote this in like 1,000 lines of code." And I was like, "Whoa, yeah. I mean, I guess, but it works, right?" And so that was that. Like I was happy that it just worked,
Hmm.
and that was kind of my emphasis. And so like this was like a recurring thing where I noticed that I would solve a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes I would solve a problem in a way that wasn't the best way of solving it, but I
Mm-hmm.
still was managed to solve it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think just the idea that there were alternative approaches to every single problem that I
Mm-hmm.
was tackling,
Mm-hmm.
that that definitely intrigued me because
Mm-hmm.
it kind of made me realize that there was a big design aspect to
Mm-hmm.
this, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a cookie cutter solution
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that it wasn't just A or B. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you can design the system in a certain way so
Mm-hmm.
that it would perform in this way and it would be easier to maintain. And
Mm-hmm.
so those sorts of things really intrigued me
Mm-hmm.
and kind of made me associate like the aspect of programming as more of like an art rather than just like a field of study per se.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there was that. The other thing that I really liked about that programming course was every single exam I had done up to that point was
Mm-hmm.
basically just like, okay, just study maybe like a couple days before the exam, do the exam, and
Mm-hmm.
basically forget everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was the approach that I employed for a lot of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't really think that the courses were that difficult. You could
Mm-hmm.
probably just study a couple days beforehand. However, for this class,
Mm-hmm.
for the exam, there wasn't really a point in studying for it because basically what it boiled down to was like he would give you an unfinished program. It was a
Mm-hmm.
client server program. It
Mm-hmm.
had a bug, and
Mm-hmm.
he would just like, you have an hour and a half, solve this or fix the bug and
Mm-hmm.
get this client server program to work. And so there was literally no way to study for this aside from just doing the assignments and
Mm-hmm.
getting more comfortable in the language.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time we were learning Java.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that the fact that this CS course actually forced you to like actively work on these problems rather
Mm-hmm.
than memorizing solutions or like concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought that was really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, versus something like biology, where like biology is basically just memorize all of these like
Mm-hmm.
facts, and
Mm-hmm.
the exam would just would be you regurgitating all these
Mm-hmm.
facts. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that was like pretty eye-opening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that CS course, I was like, okay, so this is what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
but how will I actually be able to make this into a career? And
Mm-hmm.
so that was like a big like question mark for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad being the immigrant father he is,
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know what to do. He was
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, well, programming is cool, but I'm a mechanical engineer, so you
Mm-hmm.
should be a mechanical engineer too. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, but I don't really want to be a mechanical engineer. I know nothing about mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And then what my dad did was
Mm-hmm.
he kind of looked into our network
Mm-hmm.
and he connected me with other people who were also in like a very similar type career and
Mm-hmm.
who were maybe a couple years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one person in particular was a
Mm-hmm.
guy who I still keep in contact with till this day.
Mm-hmm.
He also went to the University of Waterloo,
Mm-hmm.
and he was working at NVIDIA at the time,
Mm-hmm.
as a software engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with him, and he kind of told me what he did and his
Mm-hmm.
like path in life.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't remember too much of what he said, but
Mm-hmm.
I looked at his job. I was just like, I play video games. You work at the video game company in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was really cool that he was working at a company
Mm-hmm.
whose products I was using quite regularly because I was
Mm-hmm.
pretty into gaming at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what can I do um, in terms of my studies to
Mm-hmm.
reach a similar position as yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Um, in addition to also being able to leverage the fact that I really like programming.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought about it for a little bit, and I
Mm-hmm.
also took in my dad's input in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that my dad was like, okay, you should really go into mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, let's do something that will keep my options as wide open as possible,
Mm-hmm.
such that I can take my dad's input while
Mm-hmm.
also taking this skill set of mine or potential skill set that I hadn't fully honed yet
Mm-hmm.
and work on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to take mechatronics engineering, which is like robotics engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really come from a traditional CS background.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I decided to apply for mechatronics engineering and applied to a bunch of programs,
Mm-hmm.
including like the University of Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
the University of Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe applied to the University of British Columbia, applied to a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it to most of them. And at the end of the day, it was a tiebreaker between the University of Toronto and the University of Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I went with the University of Waterloo was because I realized that the number of internships I would
Mm-hmm.
get as a result of going to this university
Mm-hmm.
would be crucial, especially if I wanted to target the private sector and get like a job at one of these companies.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I made the decision that, okay, I'll go to the University of Waterloo. And um, however, another
Mm-hmm.
thing I realized immediately,
Mm-hmm.
based off of some guidance I got from my mentor, who also
Mm-hmm.
went to Waterloo, was
Mm-hmm.
how Waterloo worked was you're going to be studying for 6 months
Mm-hmm.
or studying for 4 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to be going on an internship for the next 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And this pattern would alternate for 4.5 years. And
Oh.
so while you're studying, you're going to have to be applying for jobs. And another thing he warned me about
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of people, they go to the University of Waterloo
Mm-hmm.
with zero experience,
Mm-hmm.
zero side projects,
Mm-hmm.
and they struggle quite a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, if they struggle that much, what can I do to potentially get a leg up?
Mm-hmm.
So even in like grade 11, grade 12, I was thinking, okay, I got accepted to University of Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to be successful
Mm-hmm.
in terms of getting internships?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what my mentor advised me was
Mm-hmm.
he told me you should be doing side projects
Mm-hmm.
and building up a portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something I really encourage high school students to do as
Mm-hmm.
well, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that they should look at problems or technology that they find interesting
Mm-hmm.
and look into how they work
Mm-hmm.
and either try to mimic it themselves as a
Mm-hmm.
starting point or come up with a more original idea based off of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, like I mentioned, I
Mm-hmm.
was really into games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, what are some basic games I can make?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, let's start off by making Minesweeper. And so
Mm-hmm.
I made Minesweeper. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is pretty easy. Then let's start off by making Snake. So I
Mm-hmm.
made like the little Snake game, the one on like Motorola. So
Yeah.
I made that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, let's then make chess. and then I
Mm-hmm.
made chess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made like Space Invaders too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made these like four games, and
Mm-hmm.
then I made them in like a combination of Java and C++ plus plus because those were the only two programming languages that I knew at the time.
Mm-hmm.
For the
Mm-hmm.
record, for somebody who's learning programming right now,
Mm-hmm.
I would not suggest you start with either Java
Mm-hmm.
or C++ plus plus
Mm-hmm.
unless you want to go through a lot of pain or like a very steep learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
For students who are starting off,
Mm-hmm.
because what I believe is really important
Mm-hmm.
is like more of that instant gratification where they get
Mm-hmm.
to see something on the screen and
Mm-hmm.
see
Mm-hmm.
things actually moving.
Yes.
So for that sort of thing, I would
Mm-hmm.
recommend something like Python.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, but for me at the time, I just knew Java, and so that's what I was
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made all these games,
Mm-hmm.
and then I also made myself a GitHub website or
Mm-hmm.
GitHub account,
Mm-hmm.
and then I posted all my code on GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
I added some really simple READMEs, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I'm set.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get a good co-op job. I should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I then started my first term at Waterloo,
Mm-hmm.
and my first term was a huge shock to me because again, I knew that managing your coursework as well
Mm-hmm.
as applying for internships was going to be difficult from the start, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize how difficult it would be from a time management perspective
Mm-hmm.
because I think there are three big priorities
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to have to deal with
Mm-hmm.
when you go to university. Your
Mm-hmm.
first one is going to be like your career.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do in terms of side projects, in terms of like applying for jobs and co-ops?
Mm-hmm.
The second one would be how can you keep up with your courses? And the
Mm-hmm.
last one would be how can you manage to have a social life?
Mm-hmm.
And I think my social life suffered quite a bit in
Mm-hmm.
my first two terms at Waterloo
Mm-hmm.
because at the time I was like, I have to like do as good a job as possible in
Mm-hmm.
terms of not flunking out and
Mm-hmm.
also be able to get a co-op job. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
my priority.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was focused on making sure that I didn't flunk out.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to get pretty good grades.
Mm-hmm.
And I somehow managed to get a co-op job.
Mm-hmm.
They have multiple rounds for co-op jobs at
Mm-hmm.
Waterloo, and
Mm-hmm.
I made it to like the last round and
Mm-hmm.
somehow managed to get some sort of like software engineering co-op job.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, it wasn't really even a mechatronics type co-op job,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it was still like a software job. And so I
Mm-hmm.
knew that, I'll be doing some sort of programming. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I was happy in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
However, as soon as I started my job,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I really hated this job because first of all, it was in a city that I didn't really like.
Okay.
It was in like Cambridge, which
Mm-hmm.
is known to being very, very cold.
Mm-hmm.
Like Toronto is already cold.
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge is like next level, in the sense that it gets a lot more snow and
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more remote.
Mm-hmm.
And also in terms of the work that I was
Mm-hmm.
getting, it wasn't really interesting work. I was mostly doing QA testing,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like the people at my job, they didn't really trust me to
Mm-hmm.
actually do any significant work.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, I don't really blame them because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know anything. But at the time, I thought it was very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one piece of advice that I
Mm-hmm.
can give
Mm-hmm.
to somebody starting out in their career
Mm-hmm.
is your first job, it's definitely going to be frustrating. But
Mm-hmm.
what's important is to show humility and show
Mm-hmm.
curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So despite the fact that I didn't really like my job,
Mm-hmm.
I was humble. I showed up every day and I
Mm-hmm.
made sure to ask questions about what the other engineers were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And just being a good sociable like employee,
Mm-hmm.
and just understand how the company worked,
Mm-hmm.
as well as what other roles existed and what technology stack they were using for their core product.
Mm-hmm.
And so, although I didn't really get too many core technical skills,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd still managed to like integrate whoever I met as coworkers into my network
Mm-hmm.
and still manage to learn things by just having those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was probably my biggest takeaway from that co-op job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another piece of advice that I can give to high schoolers is
Mm-hmm.
if you don't like your job,
Mm-hmm.
like for your first internship, that's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly normal.
Mm-hmm.
I would say focus on doing stuff outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I mentioned I was a huge gamer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think once I started Waterloo, I just totally fell off because I had no time to game whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
interested in making games.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wouldn't really like actually game all that much to
Mm-hmm.
begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what I ended up doing during
Mm-hmm.
that co-op term was I
Mm-hmm.
realized I didn't really like this job. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started working on my own things.
Mm-hmm.
And I started first like mapping out what type of job profiles
Mm-hmm.
do I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really like dig down and talk to other people within my network to see
Mm-hmm.
what other people were doing and
Mm-hmm.
what other types of career goals people had.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized was that I wanted to leverage the skills I had that I was learning in school, as well
Mm-hmm.
as also um, take my interests into account. And
Mm-hmm.
so the skills I was learning in school were
Mm-hmm.
like robotics, electrical engineering,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like maybe some software development.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I kind of excelled in was some of the
Mm-hmm.
software development aspect of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, so what can I learn
Mm-hmm.
to kind of build upon this foundation
Mm-hmm.
and get a more interesting role.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I ended up doing
Mm-hmm.
initially was
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting a bunch of microcontrollers.
Okay.
So I got a Raspberry Pi,
Mm-hmm.
I got something called a BeagleBone, I
Mm-hmm.
got an MSP 430,
Mm-hmm.
and I started making side projects with them. First side project I made was my parents, they had this issue where the garage opener wouldn't really open all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Mm-hmm.
would always complain by saying, oh, yeah, this thing never works, but they would never
Mm-hmm.
fix it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, well, how can I hook up like my like Raspberry Pi
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to the actuator of the garage opener to
Mm-hmm.
trigger it so that it would open
Mm-hmm.
based off of an app with just a single button,
Yes.
and that would just automatically open the garage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, this sounds like an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working on it. My parents were
Mm-hmm.
pretty supportive,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to emphasize that because I basically like I took apart that garage
Mm-hmm.
mechanism and
Mm-hmm.
I started playing around with it. And
Mm-hmm.
for the first couple days, they had to manually open the garage. There's like a little handle, and they had to
Mm-hmm.
open it up because I was still working on it at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I managed to get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't super reliable,
Mm-hmm.
but like I managed to polish it and get
Mm-hmm.
it to a point where like you would go to a particular IP address, press a
Mm-hmm.
button, and it would
Mm-hmm.
open the garage.
Hmm.
So that was like one of my first side projects that I worked on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then another side project I worked on
Mm-hmm.
was I wanted to get more into embedded systems.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I hadn't really done like a full-fledged embedded systems course yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went to Coursera,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this course on Coursera
Mm-hmm.
that's run by the University of Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a embedded systems course. And
Yes.
so I was like, okay, let's take this embedded systems course
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and see what I learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I picked this embedded systems course in particular
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
I knew for a fact that there was a
Mm-hmm.
project at the end.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what I find is really important
Mm-hmm.
is that I apply whatever I'm learning to
Mm-hmm.
something tangible. Because if I just learn
Mm-hmm.
theory, I'll get
Mm-hmm.
bored.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if I have something that I'm working towards,
Yes.
then I'll realize that everything I'm learning now is for something that I'm going to be is something I'm going to be using to achieve an end goal and
Mm-hmm.
actually produce something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the project that was going to be done at the end of this course was
Mm-hmm.
basically like this arcade where
Mm-hmm.
basically you could select different sorts of games and it would have like an integrated joystick and it would all be controlled by an MSP 430 microcontroller. And it would
Okay.
show all of this custom graphics on an
Yes.
LCD screen.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing was, in order for the MSP 430 to interface with the LCD screen, I needed
Mm-hmm.
to actually make like a custom PCB board. And
Oh.
so not only did I learn how to program in C and C++ plus plus by
Mm-hmm.
that project.
Mm-hmm.
I also learned how to do PCB design
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
what I had to do was I had to design a PCB using
Mm-hmm.
EagleCAD
Mm-hmm.
and then look at how to manufacture this PCB.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I went about manufacturing it
Yeah.
was like I looked up very, very shady PCB manufacturers in
Mm-hmm.
China.
Mm-hmm.
And then I paid like I think $50 and I got
Mm-hmm.
three PCBs. I was surprised I even managed to get the PCBs
Same.
considering like I found this on some random website on Google, but
Interesting.
when I got it, it actually worked. And it was pretty according to spec based off of the schematic diagram that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I integrated all this together.
Mm-hmm.
I even had like a little soldering iron
Mm-hmm.
and I managed to hook it all up to the LCD screen and it worked. And that was like my first foray into embedded systems. I was like, okay, this is really cool. And so that was two projects I worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so using those projects, I
Mm-hmm.
added those onto my resume.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started applying for new roles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, I wasn't very successful, even in my second co-op term.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit discouraged by this,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of going into an embedded systems role,
Mm-hmm.
went more into like mobile development. But
Okay.
again, despite like not really going into the field that I was kind of interested in,
Mm-hmm.
I was still interested in learning about what mobile development entailed
Mm-hmm.
and expanding my breadth of skills.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing that's important to
Mm-hmm.
realize is the software engineering discipline is extremely wide and extremely broad.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many technologies out there,
Mm-hmm.
and what you want to aim for, especially early on in your career,
Mm-hmm.
is to be like a T-shaped engineer. So you want to have one skill set that you're extremely passionate about or
Mm-hmm.
really good in, but
Mm-hmm.
you want to be able to be good and be able to pick up on a bunch of other skill sets.
Okay.
And so whether that be like mobile development, back-end development,
Mm-hmm.
front-end development, or embedded systems development,
Mm-hmm.
you want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to have some level of knowledge on all of these things if you want to
Mm-hmm.
be a successful engineer.
Yes.
And so for me, I kind of saw this second co-op term
Mm-hmm.
as building that breadth. And so I went into mobile development
Mm-hmm.
for this internship.
Yes.
And the good thing about this internship was that we were basically building a project from the ground up. It
Okay.
was like a greenfield project. We
Mm-hmm.
were using like the latest technologies. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was like Angular 2 at the time. I'm
Yes.
probably there
Mm-hmm.
like Angular 3 or something. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we were using like Node.js and like
Mm-hmm.
all these latest technologies to
Mm-hmm.
build out a prototype.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think from like a an internship perspective,
Yeah.
that was really good
Mm-hmm.
because it allowed me to iterate on something really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing I realized was I wasn't very good at mobile development.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were other people who were very good at mobile development on my
Mm-hmm.
team.
Mm-hmm.
One guy in particular, he was like this was his first co-op term, but he had done like a bunch of mobile development before this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I leaned on him quite heavily. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to him and I learned a whole bunch about mobile development and even front-end development. So
Mm-hmm.
again, this kind of points to the fact that you want to rely on other people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to like as an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to get closed off in your own
Mm-hmm.
bubble. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this
Mm-hmm.
is my problem. I'm going to solve this problem.
Yes.
And I think, especially when you're early career,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're starting off on a project
Mm-hmm.
initially,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to get feedback from other people.
Yeah.
Ask other people, oh, how would you do it this way? Or how
Mm-hmm.
would you approach this problem? Or
Mm-hmm.
like just get their sort of input and
Mm-hmm.
integrate their input into your design.
Mm-hmm.
Um, again, like I think the expression goes like it's not just a single person who makes the
Mm-hmm.
system, it's a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although oftentimes, like for instance, Linus, he's credited with building out the kernel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not just Linus, he has a
Mm-hmm.
team of developers who
Mm-hmm.
actively maintain it. And
Yes.
so to become somebody like Linus, you
Mm-hmm.
have to learn from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
something I learned during that internship, as
Mm-hmm.
well as all these new technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I learned about mobile development and then I
Mm-hmm.
realized, okay, this isn't something I'll do. And I
Okay.
think that's another important thing to know
Mm-hmm.
because um, doing all these internships will
Mm-hmm.
allow you to explore what you actually like and
Yes.
what you don't like. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what you don't like is more important than what you actually like. And
Hmm.
so I realized I wasn't really into this whole like front end mobile design type stuff.
Okay.
And then my next internship,
Mm-hmm.
I finally managed to get this embedded systems role. I was like, okay,
Okay.
this is going to be amazing. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have like this amazing time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that I was working with like a broadcast company in Burlington, which
Mm-hmm.
is again a place in Toronto, or
Mm-hmm.
like I want to say like 2 hours away from Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was doing stuff like making like audio and video decoders,
Mm-hmm.
and I was coding in C++ plus plus and working on like very memory and resource constrained microcontrollers,
Yes.
and writing like C++ plus plus code for the most part. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting. It
Mm-hmm.
was pretty frustrating because
Mm-hmm.
I really had to like make sure that I understood every piece of code that I wrote, because
Mm-hmm.
embedded systems development in general tends to be a lot slower than
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
actual like mobile development or front end development.
Yes.
And so I learned a lot about good coding practices in
Mm-hmm.
that internship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I also learned about like audio and video
Yes.
and the systems behind broadcast,
Mm-hmm.
and like different types of audio and video codecs
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. This is very like specialized knowledge, but
Mm-hmm.
this was
Mm-hmm.
something I was kind of interested in. I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine. And they gave me a return offer, but I was like, okay, I don't really want a return offer. I want
Hmm.
to keep exploring and seeing what else is out there.
Interesting.
Because this was like maybe my third internship, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
still had like three more internships.
Okay.
So again, I think like Waterloo gives you this opportunity to have like six internships. So I just wanted to keep exploring.
I
And I
see.
think that's another thing I'd like to emphasize
Mm-hmm.
for high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
Try to look at different sorts of internships and be
Mm-hmm.
very open-minded to the types of
Mm-hmm.
experiences that you might get.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really know what you'll like
Mm-hmm.
until you actually do it. And
Hmm.
oftentimes, the team that you end up with
Mm-hmm.
isn't always going to be the best or the worst team.
Hmm.
Because I remember when I joined this embedded systems company,
Yes.
the team I was matched with at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I didn't think was going to be all that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, I got this embedded systems role, but I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like this team.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I going to do? But I was severely wrong in
Hmm.
my initial assessment,
Yes.
because this team, although it wasn't that important in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that they weren't making like the core product that the
Yeah.
company was working on,
Yes.
they were working on a more like smaller um, project that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't being used as many that wasn't being used by as many customers. But the
Yes.
advantage of that was they enabled they allowed for more iteration and
Okay.
more feature work. And
Yes.
so that's something I really enjoyed.
Hmm.
And so I would always say have an open mind and just
Mm-hmm.
take the
Mm-hmm.
experience for what it is, because
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
an internship is just 4 months.
Hmm.
And just try to learn as much as you can.
Hmm.
And so I had a good experience in that internship.
Mm-hmm.
The next internship I had
Mm-hmm.
was I wanted to try a smaller company. So I
Okay.
was like, okay, let's look at startups. And
Okay.
so I there's this Kickstarter startup
Mm-hmm.
that was, I think you can probably look them up. They're
Okay.
like Tico 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And they were making 3D printers. And I thought
Okay.
3D printers were really cool at the time. And I was like, okay, let's apply it to this 3D printer startup
Okay.
and try to do something there.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied to this 3D printer startup.
Mm-hmm.
I did pretty decent on the interview and I got the offer
Mm-hmm.
for the internship.
Yes.
And I like there's a little break between after you finish a study term
Mm-hmm.
and before you start your internship.
Yes.
And I was like pretty excited and I was just relaxing. And then
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2 or 3 days before my internship was supposed to start, they
Yes.
messaged me saying that we're going out of business. And I was just like, what? I mean, I was like, I had planned my entire like work trip, like my
Uh-huh.
co-op term based off of you guys being around, and you're just telling me
Uh-huh.
you're going out of business. And we're just like, yeah, I mean, it turns out our product isn't that great. And we managed to ship out the first batch of our 3D printers to our Kickstarter backers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not happy, and we can't fix it. And so we're just gonna declare bankruptcy. And then I was like, okay, but what do I do? And
Mhm.
they're just like, well, we're sorry. There's not really much we can do about this.
Mhm.
And so I was really put like in a really awkward position because I had to
Mhm.
make a decision really quickly. I was
Mhm.
like, okay, so how do I make use of the fact that I potentially don't have an internship at this point, and I just
Mhm.
have like a break
Mhm.
in my resume?
Yes.
And that was really stressful for me
Mhm.
because Waterloo itself
Mhm.
tends to be really like really high stress in the sense that as an engineering program,
Mhm.
you're expected to do at least 5 internships. And if
Mhm.
you don't do 5 internships, you don't graduate.
Oh,
And so I had to make sure that like I had an internship or
I
else it
see.
would impact my graduation.
Yes.
So I talked to my academic advisor,
Uh-huh.
and they were like, okay, well, you can come back for a study term
Yes.
and swap out your internship
Yeah.
sequence.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they're like, okay, fine, I'll do that instead.
Mhm.
And even that like proposition was somewhat stressful to me
Mhm.
because this would have meant that I had like established a group of friends.
Yes.
And
Ah,
basically in engineering, you basically take all the same classes
yes.
with your entire engineering cohort. And
Yes.
so I had spent maybe like 2.5 years with these
Mhm.
people,
Mhm. Mhm.
and this was all leading up to like a fourth year design project.
Yes.
And the relationships that you make
Mm.
during the first 2.5 years
Mhm.
contribute to the groups that you end up having for that fourth year design project. And so a lot of people, even in like the first year or two, they're scouting other people out. They're like, okay,
Ah.
this person will be in my fourth year design project group. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm in trouble now
Uh-huh.
because I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna join this new stream and
Yes.
I'm not gonna know anybody. I'm gonna have to
Uh,
reestablish those relationships all
yeah.
over again.
Yes.
And I was initially stressed out by that, but
Mhm.
then once I joined this other stream,
Yes.
I found like a pretty cool group of friends, and
Mhm.
I think the people that I met at this stream, I actually vibed with more, and I had more in common
Mm.
with than the people in my previous stream.
Interesting.
And I just oftentimes this kind of just boils down to being again open-minded about the
Mhm.
situation,
Mhm. Mhm.
being genuinely a personable person,
Mhm.
um, because I think engineering is a discipline that's very,
Mhm.
very collaborative.
Mhm. Mhm.
The
Mhm.
courses that we take in
Mhm.
engineering, and this probably applies to computer science as well,
Mhm.
they are inherently very difficult.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the expectation is you work together as a group
Yes.
and you solve these like problems and projects together.
Yes.
And even if you're put in a situation where you don't really know anybody,
Mhm.
this is just like starting a new job. When you start a
Mhm.
new job, you don't really know anybody.
Yes.
Everybody's already formed those relationships. So
Mhm.
you kind of just have to like weasel yourself in
Mhm.
and figure out how to like best form these relationships with these people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think this is kind of like somewhat contentious to say, but
Yeah.
initially those relationships, they
Mhm.
might be a little bit transactional in the
Mhm. Mhm.
sense that
Mhm.
like you provide value to other people
Yes.
and they provide value to you.
Yes.
And that's usually how a lot of these
Mhm.
sorts of relationships start off
Mhm.
with.
Mhm. Mhm.
But after you're past the transactional stage,
Yes.
then you'll get to a point where these relationships become like into deeper friendships
Mhm. Mhm.
and they'll extend past university.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I think, especially when you find yourself in a situation where in your new
Mhm.
environment,
Yes.
what you have to focus on is
Mhm.
how can you be of value to other people
Mhm.
and how can you be a friendly person,
Mhm.
and just be good at what you do.
Mhm.
And I think that's what I tended to emphasize in the sense
Mhm.
that if anybody asked me for help,
Mhm.
I would immediately help them.
Mhm.
And oftentimes I wouldn't always be the best person to help, but I would
Mhm.
try my best.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that sort of behavior
Mhm.
oftentimes was
Mhm.
reciprocated by other people as well.
Mhm.
And
Mhm. Mhm.
so if I helped somebody on one project
Mhm.
for one course,
Mhm.
then they would help me on another project.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we would mutually benefit each other and we would
Mhm.
pass a particular term
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I found that that sort of mentality
Mhm.
was crucial to surviving engineering or
Mhm.
any competitive program.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people, what I found,
Mm-hmm.
who were arguably maybe like coming from more privileged backgrounds in the sense
Yes.
that they came from like international baccalaureate
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
IB programs,
Yes.
or they took a lot more like AP classes than me.
Yes.
They sometimes tended to flunk out
Mm-hmm.
because they operated more in a silo,
Mm-hmm.
and they figured that, oh, you know what, I can solve this myself
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really need any help from anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll focus all my time on
Mm-hmm.
solving these problems and
Mm-hmm.
getting high marks,
Mm-hmm.
but I won't focus on other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's important
Mm-hmm.
in engineering is to balance your time and to use
Mm-hmm.
your network. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, using my network
Mm-hmm.
was, I'm in a program like mechatronics, which is really,
Mm-hmm.
really broad, which
Mm-hmm.
contains a whole bunch of courses. And some of the courses I'm not really interested in. However, there are some people in my program who are really
Mm-hmm.
good at that type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are
Mm-hmm.
some people who are really good at like the mechanical stuff. There are
Yes.
some people who are really good at the electrical stuff. There's some
Mm-hmm.
people who are really good at the software stuff. I would
Yes.
say I was arguably good at some of the electrical stuff, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the software stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever there was a problem related to those particular courses,
Mm-hmm.
I would help other students out. But
Mm-hmm.
whenever it came to mechanical stuff, I
Mm-hmm.
knew there were a couple people that I could always rely on, and
Mm-hmm.
they would be the go-to people. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would try to foster those types of relationships early on
Mm-hmm.
and make good friends with those types of people so that we
Mm-hmm.
could mutually benefit each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that to be a pretty valuable approach. And another
Okay.
thing was that just having the types of conversations where basically you ask people like
Mm-hmm.
how they happen to approach their co-op job search,
Yeah.
and like what types of companies that they applied to and how
Mm-hmm.
they went about it. It also gave me ideas
Mm-hmm.
with regards to possible trajectories
Mm-hmm.
for types of co-op jobs,
Mm-hmm.
as well as possible like fields that I could also go into given my skill set.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the big things I really wanted to achieve
Yes.
was I wanted to get like a job in like California or something,
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
found that a lot of people that like graduated from the Waterloo or
Yes.
near during their last couple of terms,
Mm-hmm.
they happened to get an internship in California at one of
Mm-hmm.
these big tech companies. And
Yes.
so that was like my biggest goal.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I talked to other people who
Mm-hmm.
had managed to get a co-op job at
Mm-hmm.
one of these big companies. And I asked them, so how did you go about this? How did you manage your time? What did you prioritize?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed was a recurring theme
Mm-hmm.
being that I prioritize my time primarily with regards to interview prep,
Okay.
networking, and side projects.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
nowhere amongst those things
Mm-hmm.
was academics. And
Interesting.
so that made me realize that like if my goal
Mm-hmm.
is, to get a job after university,
Yes.
maybe I don't need to prioritize academics as much.
Okay.
This may be somewhat controversial,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I think academics is really, really important
Mm-hmm.
when you happen to be first starting out in high school and middle school, because
Yeah.
you want to make sure that you get into university.
Yes.
However, once you're in university,
Mm-hmm.
at least when it comes to engineering programs,
Yes.
what's more important is just being
Mm-hmm.
able to stay within the engineering program.
Mm-hmm.
So get what like the minimum requirement, as in like
Mm-hmm.
the 60 or 70%,
Mm-hmm.
assuming you're not going towards like a master's or a PhD,
Yes.
and focus more of your time on side projects and
Mm-hmm.
courses that you're genuinely interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I was really interested in real-time programming. And
Mm-hmm.
again, the reason why I was interested in it was because it was genuinely a really, really hard class. Like the
Mm-hmm.
one of the projects that we had to implement was like um a, a like a constant time memory allocator. And I
Okay.
remember staying in like the lab for
Mm-hmm.
like 3 days and sleeping in
Mm-hmm.
the lab potentially for a
Mm-hmm.
couple of those days
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to finish this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And despite all that pain, I still
Mm-hmm.
say it's like one of my favorite classes
Mm-hmm.
because I learned the most out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I, as a result,
Mm-hmm.
like I went into the embedded systems field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think the point is
Mm-hmm.
focus on courses that are actually interesting to
Mm-hmm.
you,
Mm-hmm.
and focus on side projects and
Okay.
networking.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of my approach. So I would say first year and second year, I was
Mm-hmm.
focused primarily on like a split between like academics as
Yeah.
well as applying for
Mhm.
jobs.
Yes.
And then afterwards, it was primarily like, okay, what can I do
Mm-hmm.
to build up my resume and my skill set? So I focused less on the academics aspect.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not to say that I fell off. I still
Mm-hmm.
managed to achieve like decent grades, but I
Mm-hmm.
had also built up like the support system in terms of like my friend group,
Mm-hmm.
so I could lean on them for
Mm-hmm.
help on particular things. And
Mm-hmm.
we would sometimes do like group study
Yeah.
sessions, maybe like a couple of days before the exam, and kind
Mm-hmm.
of go
Mm-hmm.
over concepts that we didn't really understand together.
Yes.
And I
Mm-hmm.
found like those sorts of things were really useful.
Hmm.
And so because of those systems I had in place, it made
Yeah.
school a lot easier for me.
Hmm. I see.
Yeah.
So, so it's actually very like interesting. Your upbringing seems to me like a very like you were like a very serious kid. Is that like a right assessment of how you were growing up?
Uh, I think I was a very clueless kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I was really like, I'm gonna do these things because
Mm-hmm.
they're really easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I might be curious about certain things here and there, but I
Yes.
didn't really know what I wanted to do.
I see.
And I think what I found was
Mm-hmm.
that having like mentors
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like show me possible paths,
Yes.
that helped me quite a bit. I felt like I was really like wide-eyed, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought like, oh, I could probably do all these things,
Hmm.
but I wasn't like focused.
I see.
And I felt like my mentors kind of helped me like hone in on certain things and
Mm-hmm.
guide me.
I see.
So I would say I was just generally more clueless
Mm-hmm.
and like immature
Mm-hmm.
versus like serious per se, because I think serious kind of implies I knew exactly what I wanted
I
to
see.
do. I think a lot of the times I was just
Mm-hmm.
winging it
Mm-hmm.
and taking feedback from other people
Mm-hmm.
and kind of making decisions with the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that I had.
I see.
And so that was my approach.
Interesting. So I think I wanted to go back to a point when you said you would write a piece of code, maybe it was like 1,000 lines, and somebody would say, "Oh, I could write it better in like 100 lines." Like, how was your mindset then? Even though you were thinking of it like, "Oh, there are multiple ways to do this." How did that not lead into like you like giving up on that and like even trying to think like there are multiple ways to it, right? This your class had like this like a lot of international students are probably doing it better. How was your mindset like around that point, basically?
So I'll be honest, I think initially I had this issue where I would like compare myself to other people and go
Yes.
like, oh, this person, he
Mm-hmm.
must be so much smarter than me
Yes.
because he managed to solve this problem in like
Mm-hmm.
100 lines of code and
Mm-hmm.
I solved it in like 1,000 lines of code.
Yeah.
And so there has to be some sort of inherent thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a little bit of that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the way that I fought around that was more
Mm-hmm.
focusing on like, what can I do to make this better and what can I learn from them?
Mm-hmm.
And I think regardless of whether I was good at the like writing this particular piece of software or not,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't necessarily focused on getting better per se. I
Mm-hmm.
was more focused on, okay, this is something I'm curious about.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how this person did it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of removed the ego aspect of it as much
Mm-hmm.
as I could early on
Mm-hmm.
and focused more on like, this is something I'm genuinely interested in. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's see what I can do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's actually what you said, like just this one liner of like removing the ego, right? Which is like a very difficult thing to do, even as an adult. You saying you did that even as a child to me is more, it's even more genius-like than like even like the programming part. Like, how do you think like you did stuff like that? Because like being a child was like, it was supposed to be like all about you, right? Like as a child. How did you get that step done?
I think as a child, like growing up, I would always see people who were like supposed geniuses. And
Mhm,
so I don't think I necessarily ever saw myself as a genius in any way. I
mhm,
was like, I am a person and
mhm,
I have to put in effort to
mhm,
get to where I need to go.
mhm,
And other people might be really like good at this certain thing, but I don't know how much time they spent
Mm-hmm.
to actually get good into it, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what type of resources
Mm-hmm.
that they were exposed to early on
Mm-hmm.
that had resulted in them achieving this particular talent.
I see.
So I think what's important is this is the state that you're at currently.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is something you're genuinely like and you're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't be discouraged
Mm-hmm.
by the state that other people are in comparison to you.
Mm-hmm.
You should more focus on what you can do to
Mm-hmm.
further garner that interest
Yes.
rather than being bogged down in the self-comparison. Because I think there's this expression where like self-comparison is like the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think I definitely resonate with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't focus on other people. You should see how you can learn from other people
Mm-hmm.
and try to integrate that into what like what how you approach things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but you shouldn't try to emulate them
Hmm.
like word for word in a
I see.
sense.
I see. But then, like, I mean, this type of mindset as a child is probably what a lot of parents want to give their children.
Yeah.
What part of like your childhood, like the things your parents did, the things your mom, your dad did, people around you did, that sort of helped you get this type of mindset? Because it's not like a common mindset like everybody like is working with like everywhere. I'm not even sure I had this mindset as a child. What did you think sort of helped you cultivate this type of mindset?
I think what helped me cultivate this sort of mindset was what my parents did
Mm-hmm.
was they enrolled me in a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that I wasn't good at a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they
Mm-hmm.
enrolled me in like swimming,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I made it to like Ultra 3 or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, I'm not really that good at this. I'm not really interested in
Mm-hmm.
it. And then they enrolled me in a painting class.
Mm-hmm.
They put me in soccer classes.
Mm-hmm.
They put me in badminton classes.
Mm-hmm.
They even put me in like a programming class once.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think all of these sorts of things, they
Mm-hmm.
exposed me to a whole bunch of skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize that like there are some people who are really good at certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they're good at it oftentimes is because they put a lot of effort into it.
I see. I see. I see.
And so just garnering that diverse experience with regards to like other skills and other talents,
Mm-hmm.
I think I can attribute that to my parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another thing maybe I can attribute to my parents is maybe like the immigrant mentality in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that like my parents, they came to like Canada
Mm-hmm.
um in like 2000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like my dad, he studied engineering, but when he came to Canada, he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to get an engineering job. He
Mm-hmm.
had to hustle quite a bit. He had like three jobs at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to like go into work at like 4 a.m., come home at like 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
at certain points of his life. And
Mm-hmm.
so like I think it wasn't sometimes it wasn't necessarily the things that or the lessons that they taught me.
Yes.
It was more just seeing my parents as like role models in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that like watching my dad hustle
Mm-hmm.
for his career and
Mm-hmm.
finally getting into a role that was more aligned with the skill set and
Mm-hmm.
what it took for him to achieve that.
Yes.
It may have implicitly served it as
Mm-hmm.
inspiration for
Mm-hmm.
myself as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe those are some things.
Interesting. I want to go a bit back even before I come back like to the tech part and all of that. You wanted to be in the sciences at the beginning. You were thinking of even things like ecology and all of that. When did you think that shift happened of like, okay, I don't no longer want to do this. This teacher comes into picture. And like, how was your identity shift moving at that point, even before like the teacher came in and all of that? How did that process happen?
I think that shift happened somewhat naturally in
Hmm.
the sense that
Hmm.
the ecology aspect of things
Hmm.
was garnered by my parents exposing me to like a whole bunch of like animal books growing up.
Hmm.
And I used to collect these like really interesting animal cards that had like prehistoric animals on them.
Hmm.
And those are things that my parents gave me growing up,
Hmm.
and allowed me to collect them. And I used to like play these animal card games with my friends. And
Mm.
so that kind of exposed me to like the study of animals in a
Mhm,
sense.
mhm, mhm.
And so that's why I thought maybe ecology was what I was interested in.
Yes.
And then from there,
Mhm.
I think what happened was the whole foray into technology,
Yes.
where I got my first computer,
Mhm,
and then I started playing video games,
mhm,
and then I started thinking about, oh, how can I make my own video games
mhm,
potentially?
mhm, mhm,
And then also being exposed to this group of people who are also in technology.
mhm,
Um, my mentor,
mhm,
I think even before he started working at NVIDIA, I
mhm,
used to talk with him on a more casual basis,
mhm,
and he
mhm,
used to just tell me about some of the things that he was doing. And I
mhm,
was like, okay, this is kind of cool.
mhm,
And then also my exposure to like robotics in middle
mhm,
school,
mhm, mhm,
that also kind of shifted me a little bit
mhm, mhm,
because I used to see and I used to participate a little bit in these robotics competitions.
mhm,
And I used to have really good friends who were like the heads of the robotics club at the time.
mhm,
And although I wasn't like a very prominent figure at these clubs, just
mhm,
my interaction with these people
mhm,
kind of garnered more of my interest towards these sorts of things.
mhm,
Another thing may have also been I was in this business club in high school, in like grade 9 and
mhm,
grade 10,
mhm,
where it made you kind of think about case studies
mhm,
and made you think about what it was like to run a company.
mhm,
And so those sorts of things also made me kind of lean more towards the private sector.
mhm,
And I realized that I wasn't super interested in business,
mhm,
but maybe I could leverage my skills in technology and potentially leverage my knowledge in business to maybe
mhm,
do something in terms of my career. And so I would say it was like a combination of just like technology I grew up with as a
mhm,
kid,
mhm,
as well as my friends who encouraged me to like join robotics club,
mhm,
join the business club,
mhm,
and just some of my friends also happened to be really good at math.
mhm.
And like one of my friends was also really good into computer science. And
Yes.
so he kind of told me, oh, yeah, you should also apply for this computer science course.
Mhm,
And so having that kind of network was also pretty important for me
mhm.
even when I was like in middle school, high school.
Interesting. I think we need a part two for this chat because I think I've just loved a lot of this. I wanted to dive in a lot more into your experience with like the internship, sort of like even things 9th, 10th grade. But I think we will have to break it and stop it here for today. This
Okay.
has been like super amazing. I think before I go, I just have sort of like one last question for you. I think like in all of this that has happened to you, what is like your most memorable moment, even up to like 9th, 10th grade of all of this?
Hmm. My most memorable moment. When you say my most memorable moment, would you say it's like my most formative moment or
Not necessarily formative, I think, just something you just always remember the most.
I see. Um, I think probably my most memorable moment
Mm-hmm.
would have been, I think, my fourth year design project.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was with a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
and we had come up with this idea to
Mm-hmm.
basically, it was kind of a silly idea at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was an idea where you would attach your phone onto a drone
Yes.
and it would fly up and it would adjust the camera on your phone and it would take like the optimal picture of you. So it would use like computer vision as well as some
Oh.
electromechanical components. It was kind of a stupid idea, but
Right.
like I thought it was fun. And I think that was really a formative project for me, not necessarily because of the end result, but
Yes.
more of the process of getting to it.
I see.
In a lot of ways, it was the culmination of a lot of the skills I learned in university in terms of
Mhm.
like PID controllers to control the drone, as
Yes.
well as like computer vision and machine learning to
Mm-hmm.
like change the angle of the camera
Yes.
and define what optimal really meant in terms of
Mm-hmm.
picture quality, as
Mm-hmm.
well as just like doing a project with friends and like delegating work to people.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of like really dumb moments within that project. I think,
Mm-hmm.
for example, we had created our first iteration of a
Mm-hmm.
drone and somebody made a programming error and they ended up flying the drone and it just kept flying up and it went above the clouds and it just crashed somewhere and we have no idea where that drone is
Did
even
it
till this day.
did it take your phone with it?
No, unfortunately, it didn't have a phone on it. And I think that was one of the big flaws with this idea because no one would feel comfortable putting their phone on this
Ah,
drone.
I see.
But I think we had like a lot of really like interesting moments like
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
where, for example, I got a call at like 2 a.m. saying
Mm-hmm.
that, oh yeah, our fourth year design project, it just flew away. And this was like maybe 2 weeks before the deadline of this
Uh-huh,
design
uh-huh,
project.
uh-huh.
I was super stressed out because we
Ah.
essentially had to like remake the entire
Mm-hmm,
design from a
mm-hmm,
mechanical
mm-hmm,
perspective. We had saved all the code at the time, but
mm-hmm.
like that was very stressful.
Interesting.
So basically like a lot of like random stuff happened, but
Mm-hmm,
at the end we managed to actually like successfully deliver the project
mm-hmm,
and it managed to take some pretty good pictures
mm-hmm,
and the people that I made, the friends that I made
mm-hmm.
within my group, I still keep in touch with till this day.
Wow.
So I think that was a pretty like memorable moment.
I think this memory will be super cool when you sort of start your own satellite company or something and like the first satellite, where is the first satellite like it flew into space? But
Yeah.
Jazakumullah khairan Abdulhadi. I really enjoyed this. I think I just have to go pray now. But then we're gonna put up a second part two for this. I really think I do need a part two of this, and we'll definitely follow up for this. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, come.
Thanks.
Assalamu
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.